Hi, and thank you for tuning in to the Daily Dose for Spiritual Growth. Today we're going to be reading James chapter 2, verses 15 through 17. If you were not with us yesterday, we read just verse 14, and we were talking about James introducing the topic that will take us this week into works and faith. Can you have faith without works? That's what we're talking about. And so today we're going to read verses 15 through 17. Let's dive right in. I'm going to have some supplemental scriptures that I'm going to encourage you to read on your own for the sake of the time. We won't do it here. But let's first of all read what we do want to read today in James. Verse 15 says this: "Suppose a brother or sister is without clothes and daily food. If one of you says to them, 'Go in peace, keep warm and well fed,' but does nothing about their physical needs, what good is it? In the same way, faith by itself, if it is not accompanied by actions, is dead." Okay. You guys, this is crazy. So here's the deal. Yesterday we talked about, this rhetorical kind of imaginary conversation that he's having with someone, this argument that he's making that deeds, that works are a very necessary part of faith. It's the evidence, it's the fruit of the relationship that you have with God, that transformation of you from the inside out. And he's having this argument with his audience. I guess it would be us. We get the benefit of reading it. Here now he's using some examples. I love examples. I'm like, yes, let's go. Tell me what we're talking about. Now, keep in mind in this language, he says, suppose a brother or sister is desperately impoverished, right? He's not talking about someone who just didn't have money to go out to eat today. He's not talking about someone who wants to get some nice clothes, but I guess they'll sell it for a thrift store. He's talking about people here who are unable to care for themselves. It literally says without clothes and daily food. Like, we're not talking about extravagance. We're talking about they don't have the bare necessities, right? And so also what I want you to notice is he's specifically saying brothers and sisters. So he's talking to us about, hey, suppose a fellow Christian, suppose a fellow believer was in a desperate situation where they couldn't even supply for their basic needs. And you were to go up to them and said, hey, go in peace, hope it works out for you, and just go about your business, meaning not making yourself available to assist, to help them in their great need. He says, what good is that? You say you have faith, but what good is it if your faith doesn't produce change in you? And then he goes on to say, in the same way, faith by itself, if it is not accompanied by action, is dead. This is a good example, and yet it's a very challenging example. It's giving us some practicality to this concept, this ideology that we began talking about yesterday. Let's take an example here, he says. Do you actually live out your faith by helping those around you in need? Are you actually willing to inconvenience yourself, to be a noticer, to sacrifice, to go out of your ways? He doesn't even bring up a non-believer, a lost person. He literally says for a brother, for a sister, because if you're not, your faith is dead. And remember yesterday, we're not talking about, your faith is weak. Oh, your faith isn't as strong as it used to be. He's literally calling it dead, useless. Yesterday in verse 14, he says it does not save you. It's a false faith. You might think you have faith. James is saying here, without evidence, your faith is worth nothing. It's pretty intense. The verses that I wanted to challenge you with, if you flip back to Matthew chapter 25, just get a pen and paper, jot this down. I am actually not going to take the time today to read these. You are fully capable of reading it on your own. But it's two sections, Matthew chapter 25, verses 31 through 40. Maybe some of you are familiar. Let me give you a little summary. It's that portion of scripture where Jesus is teaching and he says, if you ever feed someone who's hungry, you fed me, right? If you ever clothe someone who's naked, you've clothed me. If you've ever given someone a drink who's thirsty, you've done it for me. Whatever you've done for the least of these, you've done it for me. And it's this beautiful, encouraging example that, hey, when you help others in need, when you meet a need, it's you living out your relationship. And literally, this is where some of that terminology, becoming the hands and the feet of Jesus. When you do it for the least of these, you're doing it for me. But on the flip side, the same chapter, next few verses, 41 through 46 in Matthew chapter 25, we see the other side of that coin. And he chastises the people, the audience, and he says, you didn't feed me when I needed it. You didn't clothe me when I was naked. You didn't bring me a drink when I was thirsty. And they're like freaking out. What do you mean, Jesus? When did this happen? I don't remember that. And they're racking their brains. When did I not meet a need that Jesus had? And he says, when you didn't do it for the least of these, when you ignored that person in need, when you overlooked that opportunity to bless, when you justified staying silent or inactive, you actually were doing that grievance, not against a no-name person that you may never see again. You did it against me. And the language gets really extreme at the end of that chapter when he talks about where the two different people will go, the righteous and the unrighteous. He attributes in that portion of scripture, Matthew 25, that those that are not acting out their faith in meeting the needs of others are actually unbelievers doomed to hell. It's backing right up with what James is saying here in chapter 2. These are extreme things. And so I want to challenge you. This is not to motivate you by guilt, right? We've talked about motives. Let's do a motive check here. This is not, oh my gosh, let me go find a clothing drive. Let me go do soup at a soup kitchen. Okay. Motive is everything here, right? This is not out of guilt going like, okay, I'm going to donate me close to the thrift store. Surely someone in need will get it. Like, that's not what we're talking about. I'm going to throw a couple bucks, in the little red buckets at Christmas time outside of Walmart. That's not what we're talking about here. It's not doing deeds just to do deeds. It's not to check boxes before God. He's not amused. It's saying if you have the heart of Christ, if Christ lives in you, it should come out of you in how you treat others. You need to begin to see people the way that Christ sees them. You need to treat people the way Christ treats. You need to love people, forgive people, show mercy to people, bless people, help people the way that Christ had. As he becomes the Lord of your life, the evidence should flow out of you that mercy is the only way you've been saved, by the mercy of God through Jesus' sacrifice on the cross. And so if you have received mercy that's real, then mercy is clearly what you should give freely. James is challenging us with this example that our lifestyle should reflect the God that we serve. In closing today, I actually want to read a quote to you. I found this so powerful. This is Charles Spurgeon. Listen to what he says. He says, the saints fed the hungry and clothed the naked because it gave them much pleasure to do so. They did it because they could not help doing it. Their new nature impelled them to it. They did it because it was their delight to do good. They did good for Christ's sake because it was the sweetest thing in the world to do anything for Jesus. What if that was our attitude? James is challenging us. Jesus is commanding us in Matthew. They're both saying the same thing. Hey, when you become a follower of Jesus Christ, following him leads you into serving others. Following him changes the way that you treat people, the way you view situations, the way that you engage in opportunities. Faith and works go hand in hand. And so again, I ask you what I asked you yesterday. What evidence is there in your life that your faith works, that your faith is real, that your faith will save you, that your faith is alive? James says faith without deeds, without actions, without evidence is dead, and it can't save you. So what evidence of your faith do you have? And if you're like, I don't know, this is something we have to get right. We have to talk to God about it. God, show me my error. What avenues and opportunities have you put in front of me to live out my faith? That this becomes lifestyle Christianity, not just simply something I say, but it's something I do, I live, I embody my faith. Hey, I want to thank you so much for tuning in today. Tomorrow, typically I would do a worship song, but this chapter is just getting good. So we're going to dive right into the Bible. Hopefully you'll join me tomorrow for another daily dose for spiritual growth.